Thank you, Chairman Saylor and Chairman Markosik, for allowing me to testify today. I'm here to discuss the very bipartisan issue of supporting individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities who are Pennsylvania's most vulnerable citizens and who rely on us to look out for their best interests. I'd like to begin by discussing funding for the waiting list for services. As of December 2016, the total number of individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities waiting on services is 13,420, with 4,594 in emergency need of services. Individuals on the emergency waiting list live in a heightened crisis situation on a daily basis without access to the supports they need. Many of these adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities live with their parents. In many of these families, the parents are well into their 80s and some even into their 90s. These parents who are caregivers to an adult child with special needs are often struggling with their own health and age-related issues. The adult child for whom they care, who has an intellectual or developmental disability, might be 60 or 65 years old. In addition to their disability or disabilities, the adult child is also frequently struggling with age-related issues. These men and women do not desire to live in institutions, but prefer to remain in the community where they can be active participants, where they can work a part-time job and pay taxes, and where they can be involved members of a family unit. Mr. Chairman, I also add that living in an institution is absolutely, positively more expensive than living in a group home or in the community. I've asked for support through numerous bills to fund individuals who want to stay in their community. We should realize that our most vulnerable individuals are truly our responsibility, and that we must take this duty seriously and find a way to support these individuals waiting for their needed services. Mr. Chairman, this objective of caring for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities is not welfare, but rather is the epitome of the Human Services mission. Governor Wolf proposed a $26.2 million increase for offering new community living waivers to service 1,000 individuals with intellectual disabilities on the waiting list, and 820 person family-directed waivers for recent high school graduates. The increased waiting list funding is part of the overall $195.9 million increase, or 14.7%, to provide home and community-based services to more than 55,000 individuals with intellectual disabilities, including residential and transportation support. However, it only has the potential to reduce the waiting list by 8%. Mr. Chairman, believe me when I say that this disabled community appreciates the current effort and the ongoing efforts. But as you can see, we have significant work still needing to be done for these most vulnerable citizens of our great Commonwealth. We also need assurances from the Department of Human Services that this funding will be utilized for new individuals coming off the waiting list in 2017, 2018, and not to fund prior years' needs. The budget also includes funding for 50 individuals with autism to receive home and community-based services. It provides funding for 1,545 individuals currently on the autism interest list to receive targeted services management, state plan services. Currently, waivers for individuals with autism in Pennsylvania are extremely limited and rare, where only residents in a few counties can truly access the waiver. We need to ensure that case management services meet the service needs of individuals with autism and their families, especially since this population is growing. Mr. Chairman, these citizens are not seeking a handout. They're looking for support to become valued and productive individuals in their community and our Commonwealth. I only have 5 minutes, Mr. Chairman, so I am not going to read about the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, but it's part of my testimony. And I also would like to ask the committee to please read my testimony relative to funding for the Tourette Syndrome Alliance. They get $150,000 a year. That's it. And they provide services to families that are struggling, families that cannot get supports and accommodations from their local school districts, families that cannot afford lawyers or professional advocates to go with them to fight it out with their school districts, to go through the due process procedure. And the Tourette Syndrome Alliance, based in Gettysburg, does an outstanding job. And they serve everyone from Erie to Chichester and every town in between. Weekly, they're in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or both, helping families trying to get accommodations. So I'll go to the end of my testimony, Mr. Chairman. The final topic I'd like to discuss is early intervention funding. Pennsylvania's early intervention program plays a critical role for children with disabilities from age birth to 5 years old. These services lay the foundation for success for children as they grow and offer greater options for success with continued education and future employment. The earlier we can intervene and support Pennsylvanians with disabilities, the greater the potential of these men and women to live as productive and tax-paying members of our Commonwealth family. Thank you, Chairman Saylor. Thank you, Chairman Markozik, and members of the committee.
Thank you, Representative Murt.